A brief content warning before this episode. This episode contains descriptions of suicidal ideation. Specific timestamps are in the description below. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Comic Sans, the podcast about comics for those who are sans knowledge. I'm Yen, typically the comics half of this show. I read comics. I enjoy comics a great deal. And with me, as always, is my trusty sidekick.
Always. Hi, I am Nat. I am the permanent, the perpetual, the passionate sans half of this podcast, at least relative to Yen, but definitely relative to the guest we have on the show today for this bonus episode of Comic Sans. Ladies, gentlemen, and everyone in between, please put your virtual hands together to welcome to the show today the wonderful, the one and only Molly Mendoza. Woohoo!
Woo! Cue for applause break.
Hi, everyone. My name is Molly. Thank you so much, both of you, for having me today. I'm really stoked to be here.
Before I get too excited, Yen, can you please introduce Molly to the listeners?
Absolutely. Molly Mendoza is an artist living in Portland, Oregon. Through their work, they explore the complex emotions of interpersonal relationships and self-love with a focus on layered visual storytelling, mark-making, and color. Molly is most known for their comics and picture book illustrations, which have been celebrated with Eisner and Ignatz nominations, including Skip, which we talked about in Season 3, Episode 6,
Yes.
as well as a Caldecott honor for Jovita Wore Pants, a picture book about a Mexican revolutionary who disguised herself as a man to fight for religious freedom in Mexico in the 1920s. They write stories, they paint murals, they teach students, and they draw. And now they're on the show. Thank you, Molly, for joining us.
Thank you. Welcome.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you. Thank you so much. Stoked.
I mean, I just gotta say, for anyone who has listened to Season 3, Episode 6, the episode where we talk about Skip by Molly, you would know how crazy this is to me and how I am probably slightly embarrassed by the fact that I am now speaking to Molly after my very impassioned appeals.
Your plaintiff appeals.
into the ether, because at that time we didn't know that reaching you was a possibility. So it was, to be honest, it was kind of tongue-in-cheek to be like, Molly, if you're listening, come on the show. And now you're here. And so I'm a bit, I'm sorry.
There's nothing to be sorry for.
Now that we know this works, I think we should start invoking other people.
And not even comic book artists, just like random people.
Artists,
like,
yeah.
Michelle Obama, come on the show.
Talk to us about Becoming, which isn't a graphic novel. We're all audiences and readers all the time. So we like to talk about something that we've been enjoying lately. And Nat, what's something a piece of media you've been enjoying lately?
Just want to start the show on a really lighthearted foot, which is I watched Adolescence, that new Netflix miniseries. Yeah, it was so good from a craft perspective. I mean, if you don't know, Adolescence is a show about a family, and there's a boy, a prepubescent boy who commits a very terrible murder, and the story follows his family as they learn about this news and then grapple with the grief of him, going to a facility and the verdict being out and everything. And it's a crushing show. It's a depressing show, but from a craft perspective, from an acting perspective, from a writing perspective, from a cinematography perspective, I mean, the big sort of thing about the show is that every single episode is purportedly shot in one single shot, which is crazy. And it's so good. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed it.
Now, Nat, I already know this answer, but I want the world to know that. How many sittings did you watch Adolescence in?
One.
That's disgusting.
Like
That's
a
disgusting.
madman.
No, truly. Like Adolescence wasn't a one-take show for me because I would have to pause halfway through. Go take a walk and come back. Molly, what's something you've been enjoying lately?
One thing I read, which is really hot and popular right now, which is manga. It's called The Guy She Was Interested In Wasn't a Guy at All. It's from Sumiko Arai. It's a girl love story. People call it the Green Yuri manga, but it's literally green. It's about these two high schoolers. They're both really into music, but funnily enough, they're really into music from America in the 90s and in the aughts. They're bonding over Red Hot Chili Peppers.
Nice.
And over Beck and over Nirvana, just grunge seems to be the main influence for it. But they have a crush on each other. And one of the gals, she doesn't realize that the person that she's visiting at this music store is actually a classmate of hers that she's falling in love with a little bit. It's very sweet. It's really cool. The classmate who works at the music store, she's really shy but she's cool at the same time. And she's got a really cool uncle who's like big into like the punk grunge scene and kind of introduced her to all the music that she's into.
It's always
now.
a cool uncle.
Always a cool uncle. And he's one of the coolest uncles I've read in a story recently.
Nice.
But it's been a joy. And I finished it just recently and it was very sweet, really, really cool. And it's green. And I love that it's green. It's very vibrant and sweet.
What's the title again, Molly? So people can find it.
The guy she was interested in wasn't a guy at all. And I know that's a little weird, but I promise
That's a mouthful.
It's very chill. Yeah, it's really, really chill. It's a great story.
I wonder if the title is less literal in Japanese.
I would imagine it would be a little bit less literal. Yeah.
No, but so many like mangas have like strange titles in English. Like there's an isekai, which is something about I was reincarnated as a slime.
Yeah. Yeah, something like that.
They kind of read like YouTube video titles.
Yes.
Wait.
Yes.
Wait. The title this is grammatically important what the title is, okay? It's That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime.
YouTube title, and then there'll be a thumbnail of like a guy's face, and then like an arrow, human
To the slime.
Yeah. Gets the point. I think that people will love that. Maybe it's a generational thing, but it's been new for me to see titles like that, including this one. It is certainly, that is what happens. She shouldn't know, but it's actually a lovely story about them becoming really good friends and maybe more. So
that's
Ooh.
nice.
Yeah.
Yen, what have you been enjoying, Yen?
Thanks for remembering to ask me now.
Yeah, I usually forget, Molly, and then he has to ask himself.
I was just reading something with also a great title, but it's much shorter. Die Horny by Rebecca Mock.
I love Die Horny.
Oh, wonderful. It's from Bulgilhan Press, published by Bulgilhan Press by Rebecca Mock. It's a little bit related to what we're reading today, as far as I know.
A little foreshadowing there.
Even though tonally it's extremely different. It's a post-apocalyptic romance comedy. It's about a warlord dominatrix who has given up her life of conquest because she's found the perfect henchman who loves her and fulfills all her needs. They gallivant across this wasteland and the adventures they get up to, particularly regarding a giant mountain and the crystals held inside. That's what Die Horny is about.
Sounds crazy.
Yeah, and the title, as it implies, it's pretty sex positive. The henchman character is such he's so funny because his whole thing is that he loves being physically pushed to his limits.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, yeah, and he's down for it. Yeah.
He's down to clown. He's down to clown for anything.
Okay, I'm very confused about how you see strands of similarity between that and what we're reading today. But
No. It's the logistics of that they were published by the same people.
Yes.
Tonally, nothing in common.
Okay.
Yeah, and something interesting too is that Zach's whole idea about that publishing house is that word means like something ominous on the horizon. And we've realized that it's actually like a really great publisher for artists who do kids books or who do other sorts of jobs and stuff that's maybe geared towards different audiences, to make something that is not for those audiences. That's kind of like this untold truth about the publisher in general. So with Rebecca Mock, like I feel like they're doing a little bit of that for sure. Like, the idea though is that if you're doing one thing for one audience with this publisher, you could do stuff for all sorts of audiences, whatever you want to try, which is kind of cool.
That's terrific. I didn't know that background. Well, maybe we won't talk about this now, but I want to hear more about why Stray, your book, is there and how that fits in for your career and where it sits with how you read your audiences. But we're not going to talk about that now. Not yet.
Yeah,
yes, because
Yeah.
that's a great setup, Yan, because I want to just also let our lovely listeners know that with this episode, we are launching for the first time a Comic Sans after show, name to be confirmed. We are open for crowdsourcing a name for this show, but for the moment, it is tentatively called the Comic Sans after show. It is a show after the show where we spend more time chatting with our guest about their work Specifically for Molly, we're going to be asking them a lot of questions about Skip because as you know, if you listen to season 3, episode 6, we have a lot of questions about Skip, but we're going to keep those in for now because as per the usual format of Comic Sans, we'll be reading another comic today and talking about that. But if you want to hear us interrogate Molly, stick around for the after show, which is exclusively available on the Andas Productions Patreon that we are also launching. That should be launched by the time this episode comes out. And if you become a friend of Comic Sans, a friend of Andas Productions, then you will get access to that after show and all subsequent after shows and all the good behind the scenes stuffs that they're doing over there. Shall we get into today's episode?
Yes, let's do it. Molly, tell us a little bit about what you've picked for us to read.
Okay. So today, what I asked for you guys to read was a comic called A Night Ride to the Day by Breeze Hay.
Hi, folks. Yan from the future here, dropping in to note that the creator of this comic is Breeze Who, not Breeze Hay. We realize our mistake and correct ourselves partway through this episode. Our sincere apologies to Breeze for the mispronunciation.
And this is also published under Pagilhan Press. It came out just recently, 2024, so just last year. If I just read the back of it, it says, a tired salesman and a grieving girl meet by chance in a desert, each of them lost and alone in their waking dreams. Fate, or something like it, brings them together to navigate the maze-like city of Limbo and unravel the truth of the past that's haunting them. Well, I specifically chose this because I love Hayes' color story in this book. I love the painting and the visuals in it. I love the dreamlike qualities of it. And I can't help but just really feel for these characters and the uncertainty that they're kind of going through as they deal with their grief. I personally am always kind of looking for rhythm in artwork. And I feel like this book is a great example of that sort of rhythm, or building choruses, beats, all that kind of stuff as you flip the pages. You just can't help but be picking up what they're putting down and latching onto it in a way. So it's not just a treat with the text, but it's also a treat visually. So that's why it's a big one.
For the
me.
listeners, Nat and I have actually already read this book and are eager to talk about it. Before we dive into it, Nat, should we do our 5 words? Since we already know what this book is about largely. You get 3, I get 2.
As always. But I prepared this time. I've got my 3. I'm ready. I'm locked and loaded. Should I go first?
I am not, so go ahead.
Firstly, I just want to say, Molly, incredible choice. And the minute I opened the first page, I was like, I can tell why Molly chose this because there was just such a resonance with your work. And we'll get into that, but I just wanted to open with that. So my first word, you already mentioned it, but I'm just going to say it. My first word is grief, which I think is obviously a very, very central theme. It is arguably the central theme of this book. The tired salesman and the grieving girl are both in states of grief.
I'm going to go with melancholy. And I think that's communicated both through the writing, but also the color and the way the page is structured. Even when they're in some place like a brightly colored casino, there is this underlayer of sadness / alienation.
Okay, for my second word, I'm going to go, and hear me out. It's a one word, yeah, don't worry. It's not hyphenated.
Okay.
But the word I'm going to go with is palette. And I don't just mean that in the sense of it has a color palette, because everything has a color palette. But I mean that literally, when I was reading this, I literally thought of an oil painter's physical palette. Literally parts of this book felt like they were made with I assume this was digitally illustrated and colored, right, Molly? But parts of it makes me feel like it was almost done with
the palette knife.
Yes, the palette knife. Yes.
Yes.
It's very wide and sort of chunky brush strokes. And yeah, so the word palette just came to mind. And of course, the color palette is incredible, which we will get into.
You know what? I'm going to pull a page from your book, Nat, and just make up a word.
Okay.
Dream sphere.
Dream sphere.
Yeah, no hyphen. New word. You heard it here first, folks. There's an alternate reality, a sleeping awakeness to the book. And the way it transits through different moments, almost like a dream, but it is still alive.
I mean, I think, and the characters multiple times kind of make reference to the fact they don't know if they are awake right now or even alive right now or in a dream state. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, and to end off our 5-word wrap up, I got a good one. Are you guys ready? The word is precipice. And this is an allusion not only to the ending, but also to, I I feel like the whole story, both characters are just on the precipice of like something. There's a certain sort of come close moments, I think, with the salesman, especially with the fire in the car, and it's just always towing that line and coming close to the edge. And I think that's what really grips you throughout the whole story. So that's my final word.
Wow, Nat, great job.
This is what happens when you actually let me think, for a second.
Okay. Don't act like this is my fault.
No, you did great.
Thank you, Molly, for the affirmation. Something I don't get very often on this show.
Oh, poor Nat.
But yeah, you want to take us through sort of now the more in-depth overview summary of what this is about.
There's a grieving salesman wandering away from his life and a grieving girl who is trying to exorcise her father's spirit, who seems to be haunting her. So she's trying to bury the rest of his belongings with the body, meanwhile the grieving salesman is setting himself aflame pretty nearby with the intent to end his life, only to discover that something is happening this night and nobody seems to be able to die. And they connect, and she sort of reluctantly lets this salesman into her journey to try and locate her father, who seems to exist in the underbelly a little bit. She's trying to fulfill whatever she may think his last wishes are, basically release him from this plane so he stops haunting her. And he manifests as a sort of, I would say he's kind of a bat. What would you guys describe the ghost as?
Yeah, like a gargoyle.
Yeah,
maybe?
gargoyle was what I thought. Yeah.
But I think it's like all those things combined.
Yeah, absolutely. Gargoyle bat. It's worth noting that he's kind of the only supernatural being in the book, right? Everything else takes place in a hard reality, and there's just this thing floating behind, and the salesman can't see the bat/gargoyle either. And they follow the dad to a Chinese restaurant where they meet a boxer that he used to take bets on. They go to the boxing ring, they go to a nightclub, they go to a casino, and eventually they find themselves at the top of the casino, fleeing the guards and wondering what's supposed to happen. What's supposed to happen next? And how can they release the father, and how can the salesman release himself from whatever he's going through as well? I would say that's most of the book, would we say? And there's, importantly, there's shoes.
Yes.
Yeah, the shoes are a big one too. An object from the father's life, something that the main character, I think that she also goes by like Dizzy.
Yes. Dizzy, and I believe her real name is Desiree. At some point someone says that.
It's Denise. Deniss. Denise, yeah.
Sounds like a Denise.
Yeah.
It's funny when you see the gargoyle every once in a while, kind of with the shoes on as it's trailing behind, like adding this pop of red color as those shoes are kind of chasing her. I don't know if this is the author's intention at all, but it makes me think a little bit of the idea when anyone passes, or if there's someone significant to you or someone, whether you like them or not, there's that idea of like you got big shoes to fill. So I kind of wondered if that was a little bit a part of that motif, but I found it, one, comical on the page, but also two, very haunting and sad at the same time. So there's a little bit of like dark humor, I think, to the story as well.
On the shoes, I wonder if there's actually an allusion to the Wizard of Oz and the ruby slippers, because actually, if you think about it, I'm just realizing this now. In the Wizard of Oz, Dorothy takes the slippers off a dead body as well.
Yes.
Right.
And that's what Dizzy does. She digs up the grave of her father, removes the red shoes from his body. And it's this idea of the red shoes will bring you home. So I'm just realizing this right now.
I didn't even think about that.
Wow.
You're blowing my mind right now.
Good job, Nat. Wow, that is
But I think the sad part is, unlike the Wizard of Oz, I mean, I don't think she finds what she's looking for, and I think that's one of the more depressing aspects of this book is that Yen didn't mention, is that as she goes and meets all these people who her father interacted with or had some sort of relationship with, she learns that her father wasn't a very good person, which is, I think she herself didn't have a relationship with her father. That's what I gleaned. And then she's learning about this man she didn't know and learning that he wasn't really worth knowing. And I think that is quite sad.
It is quite sad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the story itself even kind of ends on a, I guess, trigger warning for suicidal tendencies, but you're not sure if she makes a jump off the ledge or not. It's kind of left up to interpretation as she's dealing with the weight of her loss. But also, like, I still can't pin down if she was the one who killed her father or not. Like that's kind
Ooh,
of the secondary read,
Yeah.
I think,
I
to
didn't even
it.
think about
It's
that.
really hard to tell. Yeah, like it's kind of up in the air, I feel. And I can tell the businessman feels a connection to her because he also had a daughter. And so he kind of feels like he has to protect her, take care of
Mm,
her, be there for her. But Dizzy's also kind of like obviously on a path that this guy has like no idea, like the ins and outs of it. He's just doing his best to just kind of support her and help her through it, even if it requires you to go through this, as Yan had said, like this dream sphere of sorts to get to the end of
It
it.
really is ambiguous whether Dizzy killed the father or not, right? Because we do get this quite direct image of Dizzy holding a gun, right?
oh,
And
Hmm.
yes,
near the
yes.
end, pointing it, but not at a person, pointing it at the bat gargoyle. I
Hmm.
think we kind of emotionally understand what's happening here. We don't literally know, but I don't think the literalness really matters that much. It's not imperative to the story whether we know whether she killed him or not, though it does kind of affect how we read her. It's not like that's not what this story is about. It's not about a big twist. Oh, she actually did it the whole time.
Right,
It's
right.
more about the emotional journey that she and this businessman are going through.
I agree. And I think that that also speaks to the businessman's kindness, like the fact that he just wants to help her no matter what. He doesn't need to know if that's what she did or not. Like he earnestly wants to help her see the end of this night or like just to get to that point of, like we said earlier, like the precipice of it all. Like, he just wants to help her see it through and he's not going to judge her whether she did it or not. Like we, the reader can, but it's kind of cool to see this character be like, I'm not going to stop you. Like but I do want to try to help you because he kind of feels, I don't know, like maybe he like lost his shot in a way,
Yeah.
to help his own
Yeah, I
family.
think that's actually the most heartwarming part of this generally quite depressing story to me is the salesman kind of arc, because I think just to what you were saying, Molly, he kind of goes into this monologue on page 60 and 61 talking about how, he wanted to accomplish a lot of things and he wanted his children to accomplish a lot of things. He wanted to make up for so many things, but he says, but I failed every time. And he says, I'm still helping you because I don't want to fail again. And I'm pretty sure somewhere later in the book, she affirms him and she says, like, you're still here, you didn't fail this time, or something to that effect. And I think
Hmm.
that was a moment that was really like, oh, there's goodness in this world.
One of the things that's so striking about this is that inversion is that we kind of, on face value, expect her to need him, right? Because she's this young girl trying to figure out this very difficult emotional thing she's going through. But actually, she's quite self motivated and powered through, and she's going to go figure it out. And he's tailing behind her, and he really needs some purpose, right? Because at the start of the book opens, and that kind of sets the tone for the whole thing. It's just bucket lists, but not a bucket list, because it's not a bucket list is the things you wish you could do, but his list is things he just regrets.
Hmm.
Right. Right.
And suddenly he has this opportunity to do something right or do something forward, do something positive rather than think about the things that he should have done. As Nat was already talking about in his
Right.
monologue, he's failed every time. Maybe this time he won't.
I loved what you were saying because the idea that we can only control our own actions, we can't control other people. At the beginning, the businessman is also trying to kill himself by lighting himself on fire in a car. Doesn't work out. You also just can't control chance, like sometimes things don't work out. But by the end, when the businessman is kind of watching Dizzy face the end of her night, when she kind of talks about how disappointed she is, she goes, on page 84 and 85, this like gorgeous full spread where she says, and all I can think is how lonely, heartbroken, and disappointed I am tonight. And he can't control that. Like there's nothing that he can do about that. But again, it goes back to that word of like precipice. Like at least he could help her bring her to that precipice because that's something that he could act on. And it's her choice what she wants to do from this point on, because that precipice was obviously a place that she really, really wanted to get to make a choice for herself, I guess. The same way that he's made all of his life choices with regret. That's life. That's people being people. One of the most beautiful parts I think about this story is that the people are people and they're not
I
perfect.
want to talk about the art and the colors. And, anyone who listens to Comic Sans knows that Yen and I sometimes have difficulty articulating what's happening when a piece of visual art is so so intricate and so elaborate, and we just end up going, how? Why? How did they do this? Which is basically how we responded to Skip, if you remember, Molly. But now that we have you, an expert here, you can enlighten us a little, with some expertise. No pressure, but
Oh my God, I'm so scared. No, I'm just kidding. I'll do my best.
Is there any particular spread or page that you want to zero in on? I have a couple that I wanted to talk about, but do you have something you want to start with?
That's tough because I feel like this book is so rich with how they have the colors, the visuals. I mean, the one for me, this might be on your list, but there was one, it acted as a transition, but it's when they go to the Chinese restaurant and they're having this conversation over egg rolls, and we see on page 34 and 35, and we get like these yellows and oranges and these kind of like ochres and greens kind of coming through. You can just taste the food, even though we're not even seeing the food yet. You're just hungry, like I'm starving, like just looking at it. And then we see the little egg roll plates kind of floating by. We don't know how long they've been there, but we know they've been there for maybe a while, and Dizzy's just eating. And as we continue through this section, it's implied in the background that there's aquariums, but I love that they use fish as a device to kind of act as a transition when we get to 38 and 39 as like this big, what is that fish called again?
Arowana.
Arowana. I think I'm in Animal Crossing. I'm like, yeah, arowana. Catch those guys. That's super cool. But as I cross across the page, and then we get hit with like that red at the very end.
Yeah.
The red all of a sudden feels foreboding, kind of scary. We think back to the gargoyles' eyes and the red in their eyes. We think to the neon light and the uncertainty of the night, the unknown a little bit. It goes from hungry and warm and comfort to something a little sinister. I just think that Hay is like so brilliant for navigating color in that way, like just totally changing your perspective on it as you read that passage.
Absolutely. That Chinese, that the fish moving across, the arowana moving across, it's just such a great image of time passing in the same way that the egg rolls. We don't know how much time there's been. We just know it's 4 egg rolls worth of time.
Yeah.
On the bottom of 39, I just noticed this when you brought us to this page. The second last panel. Can you see the gargoyle on the left?
Oh, yeah.
Doing like a Looney Tunes expression looking at the fish.
Yeah.
It's
It's so creepy and good.
It's these little moments of comedy in an otherwise quite dour book. Because the gargoyle is like, at least in my read, the least serious of the characters.
Mm.
Despite
Yes.
being a ghost, it is kind of goofy and silly and a little menacing, but also like playful.
Non-threatening.
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's kind of like how people think the Mothman is sexy now. Like that's kind of what it makes me think.
What?
Like,
Sorry, you're
or
gonna
people-
run
people-
that by us again,
I'm sorry.
Molly.
I'm sorry. It's kind of like how people think the Mothman is sexy. I think the gargoyle makes me think of the Mothman. I'm not saying this character is sexy at all. I'm just saying that like.
Give me a second. I'm going to need to Google the Mothman. I'm
I'm
familiar.
also Googling
He's got big red
Mothman.
eyes, cryptid. I think from Illinois, Chicago area.
Oh, yeah, okay, I get
Could be
it.
wrong.
Yeah, I get it.
I don't.
I mean, I don't either. I don't think he's sexy.
Okay,
but
okay. Thank
people
you for
do.
that
Yeah.
clarification.
Yeah.
No,
I wanna
you know
be
what?
clear. I don't think he's sexy.
I'll represent them. I get it. I'll say it. Would.
You're so
No.
brave.
No.
Would.
Anyway, on this page of, just using this as an example of 34, 35, and I think what is particularly striking is when you transition from 33 to 34, right? When they're outside the restaurant and there's these hints of red with the little goldfish floating, I don't know, in the sky or something. And then when they enter the restaurant and you do the page turn and then you're just blasted with this palette of red, yellow, ochre, orange, I'm just curious, like as an artist, when you are doing this, like how conscious are these thoughts? And I know you are not Breeze Hay, but maybe it's just for yourself. How conscious are you thinking of like color theory and like what emotions a particular color evokes when you are choosing your palettes, or is it just very intuitive and you're just going with intuition?
You're so right. We would need Breeze here to answer that question to get the truth, right? But if I were just look at this, like for instance, maybe from an instructor's perspective, but then also from my personal perspective making comics. So on page 33, which I think is a phenomenal page to choose, like I love this page so much, we have the first panel where they're both sitting in the car and it's very, very blue, but you get that one dot of red, right? It creates like a point of contrast. there's like a look back moment where we're seeing the interior of, on the second panel, we're seeing an interior of like a fridge, I think. And there's that one more dot of red, and notice that it's getting just a little bit bigger. It's still a circle though. We go to these next two panels, panels 3 and 4. And it starts out ambiguous, that red kind of creeping in. It's soft at first, but then we get the edges of the goldfish kind of forming behind the speech bubble until we fully see the goldfish. Now the size has gotten a lot more bigger. It's taking much more of the composition up. It's hilariously creeping in on Businessman's head, which I think is speaking to what the MC is saying, where she's saying, they have a silly goldfish on their to-go box. Have you seen it before? And that goes back to what's in the fridge, to this goldfish creeping up, and he's kind of looking at her like, what? Like, what? What are you talking about? And then that then allows us to jump to the red of them getting out of the car. Breeze does this like incredible panel in panel kind of break. There's actually like a secret extra panel here because we get like the street itself, but then we also get the car door framing it. And then we see the Chinese restaurant where goldfish is the like logo. We get the lantern on the second to last page, and then we get something that I tell my students about a lot is whenever anyone looks at an image, we look for patterns and repeating shapes. And so we get the lantern as the establishing. We've established the red, we established the goldfish, but then all of a sudden we get the repeating pattern of the lanterns in that final panel. We've now entered a new palette, and our eye has recognized the repetition of all those little red circles until we get to the end. And Breeze did such an incredible job of like tying it into the narrative too, into like what the person is saying. To me, it's an incredibly successful like page of comic. Like it's phenomenal because not only are you getting the narrative storytelling, but you're getting a visual story as well.
Listener, I regret to inform you that this episode's going to be 6 hours long.
I'm sorry.
No, because I'm just gonna make Molly go through every page like that. That was incredible. Thank you, Molly. That's precisely what Nat and I try to communicate when we go, what? How?
How? Look for yourself, listener. We won't
Turns
tell
out
you.
there is a how.
If you want to hear more of such insight into the artist's mind, how the sausage gets made, I'm going to plug our Patreon and the show after the show one more time. We'll get more into that, especially with Skip and other things like that. But that was so good, Molly. We love close reading on this show.
I feel so embarrassed, but I geek out about stuff like
this. No, please, we geek out. But we don't have the vocabulary to do so. And so you are giving us that.
No, there's no jargon. I mean, at the end of the day, it's up to the reader's interpretation. And sometimes if you don't have the word for it, the joy of experiencing it is the most important thing. Like that is the most important thing. So
absolutely.
Yeah. Thanks for picking that page. I love that page. So
I mean, well, it's a podcast about comics. If we were avoiding geeking out, we've already missed the mark in a big way.
That's very, very true.
Can I bring our attention to another spread that I really enjoy, which I've already alluded to? This is the salesman monologue. But I do remember when I was reading this, because I was immersed in the story, but when I came to this page, I kind of took a step back and was like, what is happening here? Especially 61. I'm lost for words. Is smorgasbord the right word here? Is that a word that we can use? I don't know.
I think so.
It's like a collage almost of this man's life. And as he's talking about his regrets and the things he wished he did differently or the things he did not manage to do, there's just all these imageries of I guess what I would imagine is maybe different places he's traveled to in the top of 61. And then we also get just different depictions of him. There's one where his legs are kind of like hollowed out and just the outline.
Mm-hmm.
And then we have one where his face is kind of like liquefying. And then there's another like silhouette of him holding what is presumably his child's hand, talking about how he wishes, his failings regarding his children. There's like, it's just so many things going on that you can spend an hour looking at this page and you still see new things.
This spread in particular, I think that Breeze is a genius. And I think that this is just more their genius at work. This is one of those where I truly wish that they could be here to speak to it.
Okay, give me a moment.
Nat,
give me a moment.
Try. Go, Nat.
Hello,
yes.
Breeze.
Breeze.
Breeze, if you're listening to the sound of my voice, please come on this show. Imagine this just starts a never-ending chain of just like...
Yeah.
Oh, what a dream that would be.
That'd be pretty sick. I feel like they should totally come on here and speak to this, but there's so many layers to this spread in particular. It's such a compounding of imagery and also different visual devices that are kind of being used to convey emotion, but also the story narratively. I'm really curious about their use of transparency, like you were describing, how the leg is kind of drawn with like a red line, but then we have that like empty space. And then it's also echoed in like the background where we have like this, I don't know, it's almost like a circus-esque like orb. It makes you think of Vegas,
Yeah.
totally, but the abstraction of the head, like you were saying, where it's kind of like bleeding off and kind of peeling apart. I can't tell how much of it is them kind of speeding ahead through their life as a character, or is it actually alluding to them like almost dying in a fire early on in the story. But to me, this spread kind of represents a calamity of one person's life, that this is all their regret kind of compounded into one thing, and how that can turn into such a messy ball of anxiety, pain, depression. And it's overwhelming. It's like literally breaking the panels on page 60. It's just plaguing this person's life and kind of acting on both the characters in this moment. Why are you still helping me? And then this flame of who the businessman is kind of encroaching up to then get this just spill of who they are and what they've been through. I think it's phenomenal. I think it's like absolutely genius. I think it's wonderful, but it's one of those beautiful spreads where you could truly take it wherever you want to take it.
There's this phrase you used earlier, Molly, that I think kind of like unlocked something for me in reading this, because I already really enjoy it. But the phrase you used was secret panel. And on 62 and 63, I feel like we've got a perfect example of what's essentially, it's a spread with essentially three panels. The gutters make it such that it's three panels, but within that, there's all these shapes that guide it along and actually turn it into something more like 9.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Like you got those like figures that are in the gutter kind of, but they're like statues, like kind of like if we're in the Caesar's Palace or something and they're holding like a strip of neon and it's breaking things up, but it's pulling it out of like a party like popper. All the little lights, the cars, the neon sculpture, and these two characters feeling so far apart. It feels like
Yes.
they're in panels on their own.
There's the explicit like geometric breaks, right, with the statue pulling down the string, and then the sort of the sunspot slash confetti slash glitter coming out of that at the bottom. But in the top row, it's just segmented by color pretty much, right? Like the top row is the party ball, and then the city blue, and then the city pink. And there's no actual hard line demarcating it, but you do feel there's a transition in the way that color is moving, color is taking us through this night.
I agree 100%. Like it's kind of like the activity is what's lighting it all up. Like any Vegas strip or like any big city at night. You can't help but look at how they are so desaturated in this moment too. Like there's like not a lot of bright color to their figures, and they're kind of void of it. They kind of feel alienated by it all. Like life is moving past them, but they're just stuck in themselves.
Since we've turned the page to 62, 63, could I invite us to turn the page again to 64, 65?
A bold presumption then.
I just want to bring our attention to this idea. And again, Molly, I would love to hear your thoughts. This idea of this motif of like transparency, and then contrast it against silhouettes, because I think we get a really interesting thing here where on 65, on the middle panel, we have both Dizzy and the salesman in outline, completely transparent. You can see through them. But then in the panel immediately after that, we see Dizzy completely silhouetted. The only thing we see is their eyes. And then she's hugging the red shoes. And I think just that contrast, something is happening there. It's some sort of, I imagine it to be some sort of exploration of like maybe vulnerability, or like how, I don't know. It's a half articulated thought.
I think you're cooking 100%.
Oh,
Like
thank you.
that's absolutely what it is. I mean, like you go to 64, there's the revolving door and there's that circular motion, and then we get the chandelier above them. So the circle on 65 right above, and it introduces this idea of, or just continues to reestablish this idea of like transparency, because we get Dizzy like looking up at it, and it highlights her. And what's cool about it is it introduces the color yellow more so into her figure, and how fragile she kind of is in this moment. Like this is all really hard. There's the factor of cool. Like these panels just look sick. Like I just think that they look really cool. But then also like that transparency opens up their vulnerability again. But then also when we lock in though on those last two panels, like what you were describing, where we have the yellow figure with the holding the shoes and the yellow figure of her dad's ghost kind of following her with the red eyes. I think that it just truly like locks in like how they are so much a part of this world that maybe doesn't know what they're going through, but we, the reader, know what they're going through. We kind of focus in on the solidity, though, and the truth of the pain that this character is going through, the discomfort. It's fragile, but it's real. I don't know. That's my read on it, though. I think that I might be getting too in depth with it, but
No such thing.
it's one of my favorite things to do. Like, yeah, I mean, Breeze might be like, no, that's not what I meant. I just thought it was cool. And
Yeah, yeah.
still, I'd be like, it's brilliant. I think you're brilliant. I think it's wonderful. So yeah.
What's that thing people say? The author is dead. It doesn't matter. We can.
You think that's the full phrase?
Yeah.
The author is dead, things don't matter. I think what the transparencies make me think of is this search for meaning for these characters, right? That they are unfulfilled and they are trying to find something that can fill them up. And in that moment on 65, we're seeing, oh, maybe Dizzy's currently filled up by the haunting of her father, right? Because she's matching the exact same color of the gargoyle. And we wonder, oh, is that actually the thing that we want to fill us up with, right? Is grief the thing that's supposed to fully consume us, basically, is what I'm wondering of what this page is asking us.
You're cooking, Yen.
That's so good. That's so good.
It actually reminds me of the visual vocabulary that we discussed in our episode where we read Asterius Polyp, where remind me of the names of the characters. You have Asterius and we have Hannah. And I remember we talked about how as they meet, right? I think Asterius was all outline and Hannah was all the filling, but she had no outline, right? And then how they kind of complemented each other and they filled each other in that sense. And I think there's something there as well about the intrinsic human desire to be full, to be filled in, or to be consumed by something, whether that is love or a person or grief, for better or for worse.
For those playing the Comic Sans drinking game, please take a shot because Nat brought up Asterius Polyp.
Yeah, I bring it up a lot, but it's a comic that has stuck with me. It's a good one.
It's one of the best. It's such an amazing comic.
Now, I'm going to be very honest because I didn't read the blurb before I started reading. And so when I first started, I think the first mention of it was like, I think Dizzy was saying, because I'm in limbo. And I thought it was like a creative way of saying I'm in limbo, like Limbo.
But I think, that is what it's riffing off of, right? The city is, I think, supposed to be Vegas or Reno.
Got the desert outside. So that's what I thought. And I agree that I think that it's like that middle place. It's like a place in between, like where you're stuck.
Has anyone here been to Vegas or Reno? Anyone been to a casino city?
Yes.
Molly, I've never been, but I have friends who have gone and they've spoken to sort of this otherworldliness of it, of like how just strange it is to be there. Does that resonate with you? And / do you think that comes through in this book?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think that Vegas is kind of an adult playland for sure. It's like you're at the ballpark, but it's the whole thing and everything costs an insane amount of money. It's very expensive. But then also you just kind of throw yourself to the wind a little bit. Everything's very glitzy. Everything feels very surreal. Sometimes you don't remember what time of night it is anymore. And then it's also funny too. Like I lived in Arizona for while I was in high school before I went to college, and being in the desert is also a really fascinating thing because it's wild to just be in a place that is so arid and dry and hot and oppressive and intense, but also beautiful and majestic. And then all of a sudden you go into a town and you're like, now I'm at Costco. And you're like, okay. And I think that that's the other weird thing about it. It's a little bit of a dose of like, if I wander too far away, I could get lost and die. Breeze picked like a perfect place to tell the story.
And I think that's something that comes up quite explicitly at the beginning. I want to take us through what I'm seeing as sort of a sandwich of the book, where we open on the bucket list and all that. Where the book really starts for me is when the salesman goes to set himself aflame in the desert with Dizzy nearby, right? And we're so close on them, and it's interspersing between the two of them across these, 12 panel pages 14 to 17, where the middle of the page is a long panel that's the anchor, and then around it is all these like montage images of both past, present, and we're so close to it. And then when you see the flame going up, you see Dizzy digging, you see the shovel, and then you flip to 18 and you just go so far away from the city, and there's this pop.
Yeah.
And I love you used the word rhythm just now, Molly, and I think this is when the rhythm kicked in for the book for me, where I was like, oh, I'm like racing to get there, and then boom, and then I've got all this space suddenly, and I'm looking at this pop.
And it's fantastic because then you also get the pop of the champagne cork on the very next page too, even though there's no like onomatopoeia for it, but it's like you can hear it. And
Right.
how these people like they don't care about what's happening outside. They're having fun. Like they have no idea this is happening to these two people. And I also like what you're talking about, like past and present are kind of being melded together here. It totally makes me think a little bit of if you've ever watched The Bear, like Carmy having his like walking nightmares of cooking and almost lighting his apartment on fire. Like that's like that moment also where he's putting the kettle on and
Yeah, yeah,
um
yeah. That's such a good reference. Yeah.
And I think and that's my first slice of bread, and then we've got all the meat, and then we get to the spreads on 84 and 87. We're not in the desert again, but we are above the city. And I feel like there's sort of this echo slash rhyming that Breeze is doing, where the city is so far away and beautiful. And now this time Dizzy's huge.
Yeah.
84, 85 to me is just one of the most like evocative pages of the whole book, because it's so simple. It's so straightforward. There isn't a lot of things that Breeze is doing here, but it's just so emotional.
and she literally in a way becomes the limbo because I guess for people listening, it's like her, she's like right in the gutter. It's a massive like bust portrait of her in profile. And she's all in these grays and purples and like she's very softly toned, very melancholy. But on the left side of her, you have the mountains and the desert, and on the right side, you have the city lights that she's above. And she kind of becomes that panel that separates those two things in a way. And her text and what she's saying just kind of occupies the entire space. Like she's taking up so much space, but she still like doesn't belong. And it's so sad. And she's still so uncertain about what she's going to do. But then you get the brilliant page turn of going to 86 where businessman is listening to her. Like he's there though. He is there with her. He's watching. He's aware of her. He hasn't lost sight of her yet.
I would like to end our discussion in this main episode before we get to the show after the show, talking about the ending of this book and not so much about the plot per se and, you know, what Dizzy does or doesn't do. I don't think that's as important as to the emotional sort of point that Breeze brings us to. And in fact, for me, we'll talk about it. I mean, just in terms of what the page shows. So on page 92, we have these 4 horizontal panels of Dizzy standing on the precipice at the top of this building. And then the salesman puts the pair of red shoes next to her. And we're only seeing their feet, right? And then next panel is the shoes and Dizzy again, but the salesman steps back. Next panel is complete darkness. And then the final panel on page 92 is what would you presume to be the father's feet filling those shoes, standing next to Dizzy. And then we go to 93 and it's a full page spread. It's a reverse shot of Dizzy standing on the edge, the salesman standing behind, and the gargoyle in the red shoes standing next to Dizzy. And what I felt was an ending that gave me a bit of hope emotionally was actually the 2 pages that preceded afterwards, which don't even have page numbers. So I think they're kind of like almost like an epilogue of sorts. And it's a full page spread of the sun. Would you say rising, setting? Who knows?
Who knows?
It really is confusing because the setting is different, right? So it's kind of an impossible sunrise right now.
Why do you say that?
Because it's rising over the city and then it's also rising over the mountains.
Right. Yeah, so that's what I was going to say is 1 page is it rising over the city, 1 page is it rising over the mountains, and that's the next page. And it's just, for me, it communicated this idea, like, as cliche as it sounds, I don't know if I have a better way to put it, like the sun will always rise again. You know, like over everyone, the sun, and over every situation, the sun will always rise. And there's just something innately hopeful about that, I feel.
Yeah, I agree. I actually don't find the ending to be as bleak as it could be. I do think that it is very, very hopeful that Dizzy gets a chance to see the day. I mean, the title is A Night Ride to the Day. The night ride was hard and it was rough and it sucked. It was very, very difficult, but eventually a chapter has to close for a new one to start. It's just up to you, I guess, if the book is ending or not there. That's one of the difficult themes, I think, of this story. But I do think, though, that Breeze let us rest with this, as you said, like hopeful space where we can be like, you know what, I think Dizzy's going to be okay. I think Dizzy is going to be okay. I think this is going to be all right for Dizzy. Because there is something creepy too, or not creepy, but like that one black panel, it's almost like a blink. It's like a blink and you'll miss it kind of moment. And there's something so cinematic about it all, and I love it so much. Like I just think Breeze is so brilliant throughout the entire book. But this whole sequence that you've chosen, like the ending sequence, I think is some of the most powerful work in the story. And that blink is not only a blink for the characters or just for the sake of the bit of the father filling the shoes, but it's also kind of a blink for the reader, just to kind of be like, and now let's go. Like, who knows what's happening from this point on, but what's real or what's not. But the sun has kind of rose on limbo and something has changed. And that's really, really, really cool. And, I personally, when I read this book, I wanted to believe that Dizzy was going to be all right at the end of the day.
Yes, we shall all believe that.
I do have some questions to close off this discussion.
As always.
Did you prepare for this part?
I did not prepare for this part. I forgot about this part.
Oh, of course, of course. Let's see what happens when you have to think on the spot. So the question is, if you like X, you would like a night ride in today. What is X?
You forgot a really important part of this section, which is 1, 2, 3, 4. Pipeline, pipeline. Come on, everyone. It's pipeline time. Okay. So
now to the pipeline.
Yes.
Kick us off, Yan. What is something that ideally a non-comic thing that could be an entry point into a night ride to the day?
When I was reading it, I quite quickly had this answer, and maybe it's because I watched it recently and I had never seen it before. But the Black Mirror episode San Junipero.
Well, I've seen that.
Yeah, where I think that's a similar story about a state of limbo and two characters searching for meaning and fulfillment in this bizarre, strange world that exists before them. And it also is in the desert, I think. Nat, Molly, any thoughts on the start of the pipeline?
I always get so nervous talking about music because what if someone doesn't like the band or, whatever. I think it's cringe or whatever.
Cares?
So I know, but please don't make me think I'm comparing it to this band. And if you don't like it, it's totally okay. And I understand. There's a song by The Killers that's called Neon Tiger. And it's kind of fitting because The Killers, they're from Reno, Nevada, and they're in the desert. And I just think the lyrics of Neon Tiger makes me think of Dizzy. Run Neon Tiger, there's a lot on your mind. They'll strategize and aim you, never let them tame you, like that kind of thing. Like away, away, oh one, like, into the heat of the neon sun or whatever the lyric is. I'm butchering it. If this is karaoke, it'd crush. But this book makes me think of that song in particular.
That's such a great reference. I feel like so many Killer songs actually tie into this book. Like Human, Jenny was a friend of mine, most of Sam's Town.
Yes, yeah.
Nat, do we need to play Neon Tiger to give you more time?
Can I just do a cop out and say adolescence?
No, you can't. That's not right. No. For people playing the Comic Sans drinking game, take a shot. Nat is struggling with the pipeline.
Oh. I think 2 suggestions are plenty. So let's move on to the second half of the pipeline, which also
are you going to recommend a comic?
Maybe. And you know what it's going to be. I know what it's going to be.
So the second half of the pipeline is, if you liked A Night Ride in Today, you will like the following comic. Nat, say the comic.
Asterios Polyp! But genuinely, I do think there's something there about grief, being in that state of limbo that Asterios is in, at least when we meet him in the present day, that I think resonates a lot with this book. And he goes on this journey as well to... He doesn't really know where he's going, but we're taking on him on this journey in this sort of like almost also like a dream-like state where he's just sort of, he gets in this bus and he goes into somewhere. And I think the characters in this book are on a similar journey as well of grief and finding themselves again and finding home again, led by the ruby slippers from The Wizard of Oz.
Wait, so actually, Nat, that is not what I thought you were going to say.
What did you think I was going to say?
I thought you were going to say this one goes out to you.
Oh, oops. You can do that one.
So this one goes out to you is a terrific work by
none other than
Molly Mendoza.
Very sweet.
No, but I do think there's some sort of otherworldly connection between these books and fantastic uses of color. I won't talk about it too much because I think maybe we'll talk a little bit about it in the after show. But if you do want to know about This One Goes Out to You, I think the best place to get it is on Gumroad. Is that correct, Molly?
Yeah, you can get it on Gumroad right now, or if you could track down the anthology, which is called Shades of Fear, because it's a part of an anthology. So if you can get a copy of that, you'll also get to read a ton of other amazing horror comics that are in beautiful color. Like the color on all these comics are buck wild. Also, totally different treatments for all of them. Like super creepy, very good, totally worth it if you can track down that anthology.
We are going to absolutely link that in the show notes because I'm going to go find a copy of that.
Yeah, it's
so I can
really
read
cool.
the physical version of this book. Molly, do you have any recommendations to a listener if they liked A Night Ride Into Day? What's a comic you think they might enjoy?
If they liked this comic, I feel like then they're open for the weird. And I would say one that I read recently by Kenny Roten, Eden 2. It's a big boy. Like this book is chunky. And Kenny does so much, like panel to panel, page to page with this story where there's so many wild transitions. There's so many cultural, historical references. They're playing with so much. They're talking about the hero's journey in like tons of different ways. It's a little sad. It's really funny. It's bleak. It's great. And I can't even entirely pin down what the story is 100% about, but I think it's best if you just trust me. Go check it out because
We
I
trust
just
you.
think it's so cool. I just think that Kenny, they're again someone else who's just incredibly brilliant when it comes to panel work and to storytelling and to way that they convey and talk about their characters. It's actually one that I read a while back before it come out to speak about it, like to write a little bit about it. And it's one of those right now where I think more than ever I really want to go back and read it because again, they just inspire me so much in the possibilities of storytelling and panel work and how you can really take a big risk to try to do all that too. And that it's worth it. It's worth it to try something new.
Well, speaking of Molly's inspirations and the possibilities of panel work and all that good stuff, if you want to find out more as we talk to Molly about how truly the sausage gets made, I want to plug one more time the after show that we're gonna link. We're gonna link to the Patreon, the Andas Productions Patreon in our bio, and we're gonna jump into that conversation immediately after this episode ends. But to wrap up this main episode, Molly, if the listener wants to follow you or your works, if there's anything you want to plug, now's the chance. Where can they find you? What's going on right now in the world of Molly Mendoza?
One, thank you so much for having me, both of you. Like, this was awesome. And I guess if you, the listener, want to see more of what I'm up to, I post pretty often on Instagram. It's mollymendoza.art. I also post on Blue Sky. I believe it's just my name, mollymendoza.bluesky, whatever social. And then my website, I keep it updated pretty well. So it's mollymendoza.com. And I am working on a graphic novel. I'm starting to work on one right now. So if you like my comics, hopefully we can look forward to that. But I'm probably going to talk about it in the special episode. So
Nice.
yeah, not here. It's secret.
Thank you, Molly. Thank you for coming on the show. It's been such a pleasure, such a delight just to hear you geek out over A Night Ride to the Day by Breeze, who has been such a wonderful experience.
So grateful to have you here, Molly. And for our listeners, we'll see you on the next page.
The next page being the after show. So, see ya. Thanks for listening to Comic Sans. This is an Andas Productions podcast hosted by Mal Yente and Nathaniel Ma and produced by Scott Lee Chua and Roshan Singh Sambi. This episode was audio edited by Maddie Searle, video edited by Kit Ling Leong, and transcribed by Danielle and Espinosa. Our cover art and motion graphic animations are by Konechny Studio, Mariana Rudakova. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to rate and review Comic Sans. And while you're at it, follow us on social media at Comic Sans Pod. Links are in the description below.